This is Swamp, a pitch black swamp crawl compatible with Mörk Borg, written by Tommy Sunzenauer and Bleak Games, art by Tommy Sunzenauer and Dead People. If this is something that interests you, like and subscribe. The channel is almost up to 800 subscribers and it would be awesome if it could reach 1,000, so please consider subscribing, it really helps the channel out. Now, let's get into it. Backside cover tells us, if the swamp does not swallow you, something else will. Sludge metal inspired swamp supplement for Mörk Borg. Engulfed in a veil of heavy fog and foul fumes, daylight never reaches the stagnant waters of swamp. These wetlands of acidic sludge and swamps of sickening secretion will, no doubt, fester upon your mortal coil. Even your soul will not go untainted. So this is the nice Kickstarter hardcover print version with a nice little green book ribbon. Green is the color of choice for this product. Like the inside tables are also green. There's one insert in here. There was a misprinting for the credits for the guests artists. To correct that, they printed this out, and while they were at it, they announced their next project, Goblin, or umlaut Goblin, Goblin. It doesn't sound right. And on the other side is a bonus character class, so no space in here is wasted, which is a nice thing. You get a book that is very reminiscent of the Mörk Borg Core rulebook. Lots of random tables, very flavorful, setting appropriate random loot tables in the inside cover. Then we go into the swamp itself. This is an entire additional setting placed in the dying world of Mörk Borg. And in the similar vein to Mörk Borg, we've got very stylized artwork and very old artwork done by Dead People. D10 table to generate terrible treasure. 3D20 random encounter table. You can use this to generate 20 to the power of 3 random encounters, which is a fucking lot. This is one of the major points of the setting, disease infections. The dead skin disease, cure amputation of the infected limb, the tissue starts to rot and dissolve. Blood exhaustion, gut grubs, lung rot, and so on. Infection, rotting, sickness is a major theme in this supplement. D6 Swamp Scrolls. So more spells to cast right here. Very setting appropriate flavorful spells. Tendrils from the swamp. Writhing tentacles emerge from the ground. Stinging and whipping. Deals D6 damage to D4 creatures. Giant translucent catfish-like creature emerges from under an enemy. The target is restrained and cannot move. Summon a cloud of fog engulfing D4 enemies. Fog induce hallucinations of their worst fear. Chapter 2, The Monsters. This book has a lot of swamp-appropriate monsters, but many of them would be just as home in the forests of Sarkash, for example, and can be used in other adventures very well. Just quickly going through here, I'll show my highlights. The Wotnik. The Wotnik is like an old man, goblin, troll, whatever, just sitting around naked, smoking pipe. The creature can be friendly, especially if spoken to in good manner and or offered tobacco. And if you're not friendly, he will try to drown you in the swamp, which is a major combat tactic in the swamp for many creatures. The arachnogator. If you thought an alligator couldn't get any worse as monsters in a swamp, try mutating it with spider legs and venom. And then you've got this thing. Sludge wizard. I think I recognize the general concept and design from a Conan music video. That is the doom metal band, the sludge metal band Conan. Slugs are a major theme in doom metal and sludge because it is played so slowly. It's like a little inside joke. Map and places. So the campaign world of Mörk Borg is expanded on in the northern part of Sarkash. You can just see the northern outskirts of the forest of Sarkash right here in the endless sea in the north. And all of this swampland, marshland is added in between all of these landmarks. And several of these have descriptions of their own. Palace of the Mod Queen, Crypt of the Maggot King, the Morgana Morass, the Tomb of Nails, the Scrag Wood. And in these swamplands we have several new factions that the PCs can encounter. There are several cults within the swamp, each praying to a different rotting deity like Veiled Serpent, the Toad King, a her who slumbers under the mud. The pale slug shall awaken and swallow the two-headed basilisks. They are not just mere doomsayers, but the cause of the doom itself. This is a really nice page, this like gold foil, creating this halo for this veiled serpent, another creature venerated by cultists. Then we've got the Toad King, huge and bloated, and its smoking goblins. Story is inspired by the discography of the band Goblin Smoker, which I can respect. Another nice use of gold foil here for the crown of the Toad King. Chapter 5 are a few new character classes. Of course, get this one in the insert, Cultists of the Whispering Worm. Then you've got the Swamp Cold Renegade. And these character classes are not only appropriate for the swamp, but they could venture outside of it. And of course be used anywhere in the Cursed Lands. Fume Inflated Gut Ripper. Kabbalistic Root Worker. Reminds me of the Witch Doctor from Diablo 4. We've got the Resurrected Swamp Scion. So this one has been dead once already, but didn't stay down. This is probably one of the more creepy character classes in Mörk Borg, and that is saying a lot. Finally, we have an introductory adventure. After seeing the expanse of this campaign world, I thought the adventure is a bit small and short. The characters are out looking for the child snatcher of Sarkash and have to traverse a swamp dungeon, this here swamp dungeon, which is not very big, with just 8, maybe more like 7 rooms. Each of these are actually a larger area in the swamp. These corridors connecting the different rooms are actually the areas in the swamp that are high enough and dry enough to be traversable. Some areas like 2.1, 3.1, 4.1, they are traversable but with difficulty, like this water passage. The water is up to your hips, but it is passable. The water emits fumes that reek of rotting flesh, and the air is almost unbreathable. You feel something slimy touching your legs. These passages are like trapped corridors, puzzle traps you might encounter in a dungeon, and here the swamp itself becomes the obstacle to overcome. So what we have here is a short and concise introductory adventure that uses some of the places and monsters and factions that came in the book before, like Smeggle the Slug Wizard and the Summoning Changer, where the pale slug is summoned to bring on the end of the world. But it's not a huge sprawling adventure. This is about as long, I think, as Rodback Sludge from the Mörk Borg Core rules. After reading Pirateburg and Cyborg that had more fleshed out introductory adventures, I thought this year was particularly short, but actually it isn't. It's just about the right length for a one-shot. And what this does is it introduces the concept how you can use the swamp itself as a dungeon with natural obstacles, impassable dead reed fields and woodland becoming the walls, and the few spots of dry land becoming the rooms, and the slim passable corridors between them becoming the corridors of the dungeon, natural hazards becoming the traps of the dungeon. This is a good example of this type of adventure, but this book doesn't tell you how to create this. So I think a good companion to this would be Into the World and Wild. This has in-depth explanations and rules about the dungeon of tree and stone. And these could be used well with this, with the dungeon of water and sludge. And here you will find rules to randomly generate your areas, your dungeon rooms, and then map out the connecting trails, the corridors of your dungeon. So this should work very well in conjecture with this. And if this interests you, I've done a GM's perspective of this as well, link up here. So yeah, Swamp. From its style, it is very similar to what you get in the Mörk Borg Core rules. This is for people who just want more Mörk Borg in the same style, though this is shifting more from doom metal to sludge metal in its attitude, and is glorious for that. And since this is basically the work of one man, I have to say I'm impressed. So yeah, that's it for today. Thanks, and until next time.